僕ですか？
2023 was a pretty packed year for kaiju media. A lot of new shows, several new movies, and of course plenty of merchandising. I happened to watch a lot of the new stuff that came out, so I thought it'd be fun to look back at what released this year as well as what's still coming out. Gonna be rambling a lot in this one. I'd go insane if these were all big, complex reviews. Some of the shows and movies I discuss I've only seen once, so don't expect the best analysis. If I missed anything, that means I either didn't see it or forgot about it since there was a lot of stuff that released this year. These are all the monster shows and movies that I saw this year. I hope you enjoy. Gamera returned after saying he was gonna go out and buy a pack of cigarettes 17 years ago, in animated form even. When I first saw trailers for Gamera Rebirth, I was admittedly skeptical. The use of CG for every character looked less like a stylistic choice and more like a budgetary one, considering it has some really ugly animation. This ain't no kimono, friends. The animation for the human cast is not charmingly awful. It's just bad. The monster fights fare a little better at least. There's a ferocity to them that's well communicated, even if you can tell the backgrounds were skimped out on. But I thought Gamera Rebirth was pretty good, despite appearances. It takes half the show for the intriguing stuff to roll around, but I liked the direction the story went. The cast of kids is pretty likable. I enjoy the redesigned Showa Kaiju. There were some story beats I thought worked pretty well, and some I felt were a little contrived. But overall, it was as good of a return to form you could ask for Gamera. My favorite of the returning kaiju had to be Giren. He was flipping all over the place. It's a visually fun fight scene. As an aside, Gamera's theme in this show sounds like it belongs in a Home Depot/truck commercial. If you can look past the appearance of the show and stick with it for 3 episodes, I think you'll find yourself enjoying what it has to offer. Or not. I'm not you, you're not me, we're not the same person. I liked it. Now, I don't know if this show has done well with anime fans. They're notoriously fickle about the 3D direction the industry is going, and ugly shows like this aren't exactly helping the perception. That said, Gamera fans are eating well, because Rebirth is pretty good. Big recommend. Another pleasant surprise came in the form of Chibi Godzilla Raids Again. Now, I was very dismissive of the Chibi Godzilla branding when it was debuted. It seems like a less cute Godzilland, and to an extent it still is. The shorts they released of Chibi Godzilla as this roommate were very, nothing. They were short and inoffensive. Now, I absolutely was not expecting a follow-up to that to be a genuinely funny, character-based comedy series.
Ohayo!
Dare?
No notes on this one. It's pretty good.
僕はチビゴジラ。君は？
僕はチビメカゴジラ。
へー。
あれ、急に興味なくした？
There was also Ultraman Blazar, another yearly Ultra series. And while the show hasn't concluded yet, I think it's safe to say what we've gotten so far is pretty good. I'll obviously have more to say in an Ultra retrospective, which I'll make 2 years from now. But for now, I'll say I think it's a pleasant return to form. By that, I mean it's got less of the things I find annoying about new generation shows, and it plays itself closer to something from the mid-2000s, I want to say. It's still subject to some of those Bandai-isms. I don't think we need to cut away every time Blazar does his buzzsaw move or bring out his little sword. But the rest of the show's elements make up for it. I like the characters well enough. The change in perspective to the protagonist being the attack team's captain does a good job at freshening things up. There have been some great standalone episodes so far, and I'm loving that we've more or less consistently seen a new monster in every episode. I'm looking forward to seeing how the show concludes next year. This is certainly one of the better Reiwa-era outings. There was also Ultraman Regulos, but who gives a shit? Okay, I like the look of the Ultra himself, and it's always nice to get something Leo-related in current year, but I couldn't get through this one. I've always found these green screen shows boring, so I'm gonna move on.
Have you improved your skills?
Yeah.
To celebrate Ultraseven's 55th anniversary, a short concept piece was put out that aimed to depict an alternate scenario where Ultraseven wasn't able to stop the invaders from attacking. I think. I don't know. The Earth seems fine. The plot is kind of confusing. The only issue is that realities seem to be colliding with each other, but it's at the very least a concept piece, so it makes sense that it doesn't make sense. It's very experimental. There's a lot of callbacks to the show. They even made close-ups of Dan and Anne with some kind of AI deep-faking technology, which is very uncanny to see. They found the most caked-up actors to play both of them. It's very distracting. Overall, the short was interesting, but there wasn't a lot to chew on. I would like to see something like this expanded into the length of an actual episode. I can't get enough of new Ultraseven. It's one of my favorite shows from the Ultra series. But for now, the short film is just fine. Just, maybe get actual actors to play the two of them in close-up for the real deal, you know? I know neither of the original actors are dead and they were able to give their consent, but it's just kind of freaky to look at. I don't know. They knew better than to let them open their mouths, because I'm sure that the moment they started talking, it would look very creepy. Gigabash, the 3D arena kaiju brawler, got Ultraman DLC. It would be the first time Ultraman and Godzilla were in the same game if that didn't already happen in Godzilla Battle Line. Or Battle Soccer. Or that one baseball game. Or City Shrouded in Shadow. God, that was such a missed opportunity. But yeah, here we go. A proper fighting game with Godzilla and Ultraman sharing the screen. And they make actual physical contact with each other. Ultraman, Tiga, and Baltan were very safe picks, but I have to laud the team at Passion Republic for choosing Gamera. I expected another Tiga rep, but I predicted Golza or Kiraloid before her. She's still a welcome surprise, and she's a lot of fun to play. I still refuse to be psyoped into thinking Ultra women are sexy, though. No matter how much archival footage there is to the contrary.
She is such a bad bitch, though.
All we're missing is Gamera, and we'll have the Kaiju fans' dream fighting game. As long as people actually buy this. I don't know the sales numbers for this game, it might not be selling well. Also, some new single-player content. This game desperately needs more of that to be replayable to me.
She is such a bad bitch, though.
Oh, right! There was a new Godzilla game this year, too. It's called Godzilla Voxel Wars? A game capitalizing on voxels? I feel like this is 10 years too late. Art style aside, this one is pretty cute. It's yet another Godzilla strategy game, but the vibes of this one carry it. The music is really pleasant. There is a story, and it's about a kid playing with toys that are somehow deciding the fate of the world. Also, there are mushroom monsters, and they don't call them Matongo. Did that require extra licensing? That's pretty funny if that's the case. But yeah, this game's about a kid playing with voxel toys, and I don't really buy that. Get that kid some Bandai vinyls. That would make more sense than these pixelized gremlins. But yeah, Godzilla Voxel Wars, it's okay. It's a very strict strategy game. It doesn't allow for that many unique approaches to levels, so if you want the best score, you gotta play by the game's rules. But there is still fun to be had with it. I prefer my strategy games to have a little more leg room with decision making, you know? Some of the later levels really stumped me. I think a lot of fans would prefer a new fighting game, but Godzilla's video game career isn't exclusive to one genre, so I don't mind releases like these. But a remaster of the Pipeworks games would be nice. You know, release that to consoles and PCs. That'd probably make some money. Obligatory Skull Island Rise of Kong mention. There, I mentioned it. I didn't buy this one, but I was in a stream where it was played.
Hey, Golden.
My favorite film overall is, in fact, Shrek
Soundboard?
2001.
Hang on.
Kong has passed.
I'd say it was the worst game of the year, if it even tried to be a game. There's a reason why I didn't even buy it for the bit. It's shovelware. Before I move on to the next big topic, here's some coverage of things that I felt were worth mentioning, but I didn't want to write a full paragraph for. You know, just cleanup. Shin Ultraman made its way to American theaters this year. I already saw it through other means, but I enjoyed seeing it again. I saw Shin Kamen Rider as well. I know it's not explicitly a kaiju thing, but I know there were going to be people in the comments asking if I had seen it, so, this is me saying I have. And yeah, I enjoyed it. Hideaki Anno's style was cranked up to an excessive degree, and I think because of that and its weirder pacing, it's probably my least favorite of the Shin trilogy.
It's hard to explain, but if I could describe Anno's style here, he has this really cool shot next to a really cool shot, but the shot cuts the moment a character stops talking. It's a cold and calculated editing style that I often use in my own videos. Watch, it's about to cut. And when the style works, it works really well. And yet the movie is front-loaded with so much action and exposition that it makes my head spin. This type of editing was in the previous two movies as well, but I think I found it more palatable there because they were throwing less weird jargon around. I really think Shinji Higuchi is the partner he needs to keep him in check in that regard,
but it's still a fun movie. It's the human element of Shin Kamen Rider that I thought worked pretty well. I really got to feel for Hongo's struggle, and it's satisfying seeing where his story goes. I just wish it slowed down sooner to let the earlier moments breathe. It was like, okay, we're doing this story with Spider-Man, okay, now we're doing this story with Batman, like, Jesus Christ. I know Shin Ultraman had a similarly compilation film-esque structure, but this one felt more jarring. Luckily, it does slow down in the second half, but I wish the setup wasn't so bewilderingly fast. I understand the movie got hit pretty hard by the monstrous Batman's terrifying virus being spread among the people, but the CG was pretty hit or miss too. I was loving it when it was actual guys in suits doing all the choreography, and when they found a really striking shot with CG, it really worked, namely that shot where Hongo Rider kicks Spider Augment. Oh yeah, the soundtrack was fucking awesome too. At the end of the day, I think Anno just wanted to make a really fan-servicey throwback to the original series, and it mostly worked as that. I only saw it once, and it was during its theatrical run. It was the first time I ever had to shush someone in a theater because they wouldn't stop doing their epic riff tracks commentary. So maybe the movie is better at home. And while these shows definitely didn't come out in current year, obviously, I made an effort to watch some older, non-Ultraman tokusatsu shows this year. One of them was Iron King, and it was a lot of fun. The energy of this friggin' show is infectious, and the protagonist duo is endearing. I really like that there are different enemy factions, and they all have visually distinct monsters. It makes it feel like there's a progression, even if the structure and format of the show remains the same throughout. It's a shorter show too, so expect an Ultra Gaiden on that sooner than the others. I also finished Jumborg Ace. The viewing experience was marred by horrendous Japanese to Malaysian to English subtitles, but the qualities of the show shine through. Naoki makes for an atypical protagonist for a pseudo-Ultra series, in that he's kind of an asshole at the start. So much so that I genuinely thought he was going to be replaced at the end of the show's first quarter. So it was interesting to see how he grew over the course of the show. Jumborg Ace kinda does what Iron King did by having a new villain for every arc, even though they're all virtually identical and I don't think the monsters change that much with them. But overall, I think I liked it more than the past couple Ultra series that aired at the same time as it. This very much feels like a missing link between the classic Monster of the Week format and the more story-driven ones seen in Ultraman Leo. I can't wait to do a video on this one, whenever that may be. Special thanks to viewer Francois for providing these high-quality DVD visuals. I'll be using them when I eventually get to doing an Ultra Gaiden on the series. So if you're watching, you're the man. One more older toku I started was Spectreman. I can't speak to the original Japanese version because I've been watching it with the dub, but I've been having a great time with it. Gory and Karis make for entertaining villains. Putting a gorilla in anything instantly improves it, and they're further enhanced by their dubbing.
Yes, I gave it form, but not yet intelligence. It has to have intelligence to survive and win.
It is quite repetitive in a way a lot of old toku is. 63 episodes is a big number, but I do plan to finish this one and eventually make a video on it.
Yes, Space Ape.
It'll be a couple years before you see videos on these shows, but I'm just including this segment to say, hey, they're viable topics now. Back to 2023.
Are all boys as useless as you?
Yeah, pretty much.
The Monsterverse King Kong cartoon finally happened. I remember that being quietly developed over the past 3 years. And whenever there was news it was still happening, my response was like, huh. And then I'd move on with the rest of my day. Well, the show was finally out. I watched it. Then I moved on with the rest of my day. And after that, I barely heard a whimper about it. That's the problem with dumping an entire season on streaming these days. No matter how good it is, discussion of it peaks in one day, and after that it's dead silence. I have the same complaint with how Gamera Rebirth was handled. The only people talking about it are Kaiju fans, and I think everyone else was too weirded out by the animation to give it a chance. I think weekly installments are better for a show's overall staying power. It doesn't help that I thought Skull Island was aggressively mid. Sorry, I didn't really like the characters. They spent the whole runtime arguing with each other, and it got grating after one episode. The art style didn't do anything for me either. It's no exaggeration to say that I thought the episode titles were the most entertaining part. Of the 4 stories that have been set on Skull Island, 3 of them feel way too similar. A colorful cast of misfits get stuck on Skull Island, they meet an eccentric who knows their way around the place, we learn a little bit about Kong, they encounter a giant crab or slug with antlers or some shit. You repeat that a couple times, Kong fights a big new guy, and you have a new installment in the Monster Mash cinematic universe. And yeah, most adaptations of King Kong have these type of sequences on Skull Island too, but that doesn't make it any less repetitive. What makes their Skull Island stand out is the little details, the lore, the background stuff. And while Monster Mash Kong has some neat set pieces, I've never been enraptured by it as a location. The Skull Island movie is good fun, but I think that's where my enjoyment of this setting ends. We don't see much new here every time we visit. On one hand, I do like that they wanted to keep it self-contained, not reliant on any previous lore and whatnot, but tragically, I just wasn't really into this one. If I could recommend any part of it, it would be the penultimate episode. A grand majority of it is this interaction between Kong and this castaway he grows attached to. They've got a neat dynamic, and there's some good visual storytelling. The final battle of the series is fun enough too, and I like the detail earlier in the show of the big bad titan throwing ships at Kong's lair to grab his attention. But rather jarringly, the season ends without a proper conclusion for the rest of the cast. It ends on a cliffhanger. I'd honestly be surprised if it got another season. With how Netflix artificially slices produced episodes into separate seasons, they might have one ready to go, but I'll probably struggle to remember what happened in the last season or even care. I would need to rewatch it for a better grasp on my thoughts and better explain to you why I didn't particularly care for it, but I'm not exactly endeared by the thought of going back and actually watching this again, so sorry if this seems like a cop-out. The show came and went, and I don't want to dwell on it for much longer.
And now there's guns!
If my ramblings during the Kong section didn't make it obvious, I think the Monster Mash universe has serious problems with making worthwhile supplemental material. Of course it's not going to impact the universe in a big way. You can't just expect everyone to pick up a comic book when Muto Prime randomly appears in a movie or something. But with a couple exceptions, I don't think it ever goes beyond purely existing as a tie-in for a movie. And it's written in such a way where, it's trying to not contradict the movie. And even that happens all the time. Like, Godzilla Awakening barely makes sense now. But here comes a brand new streaming show called Monarch Legacy of Monsters, and it promises to be something you can give a shit about. It's not an easily disposable comic book hastily thrown together to tie in with a new movie. This is a television show with the production values of one of the movies. Watch Adam Wingard's next movie, ignore it anyways. Regardless, what do I think? Are we back? Are we hip? Are we with it? Is it good? Well, maybe it's a little too early to say. The show hasn't finished airing yet, but I've liked what we've gotten so far. If nothing else, the show has some great tension that builds in its opening episodes. It's surprisingly thrilling, the way the characters are dodging Monarch's agents as it cuts back and forth between the past and present. I like that we're finally getting world building. In the movies, all they did was show cave paintings and have scenes of scientist characters talking about what Godzilla did millions of years ago. At the beginning of King of the Monsters, they're holding Senate meetings and we briefly see protests, but it's not explored in depth because the movie needs to sprint to the next set piece. So yeah, in this TV show, it's neat to get to see how the rest of the world reacted to monsters suddenly appearing, and the safety precautions that came of it. It's also interesting to see something Monsterverse related in current year that has characters with emotional baggage that's continuously reinforced and you understand why they act the way they do. The presentation of the moments where Kate has Godzilla PTSD runs the gambit of being silly. There's a scene involving a car in episode 2 I found kinda laughable. Okay, if I can get into spoilers, it's too ridiculous to not describe in detail. If you're watching this, you've probably already seen the episode. But there's a part in the episode where she has a freak out and her kicks cause the car to flip over. Like she kicks the driver and that causes them to flip the car over. But hey, I get it. I get why she would have these panic attacks. I do like schlock, but tonally I prefer what this show is going for over the direction GVK seems to be taking this franchise. I had a whole thing written out for why, but you know, it's not really relevant. So here's some disjointed miscellaneous thoughts. So far, my complaints range from granular to mild. The show doesn't always hit. Some of the green screen effects look a little but overall most of the effects look pretty impressive. The lens they use for every shot being this kind of wide fisheye makes the show look uncanny at points. You know, it can look good, but they seemingly use this lens for every shot, and it's kind of distracting. Specific moments really work. The Bikini Atoll scene in episode 3 is really cool. Kurt and Wyatt Russell are both great playing the role of Lee Shaw. It's funny how they keep lampshading how he'd logically be 90 years old. That's something I've wondered about Serizawa as well. Kate being revealed to be a lesbian was also pleasantly progressive. I mean, I'm a straight guy, so I'm probably not the right person to comment on this, but even if it's not an intrinsic part of her character, it's pretty ballsy to make the lead gay. Even if it's not a flagship entry like a movie. The Disney approach would have been to make a side character gay and shove them into the background so they can be edited out of foreign releases. Her past relationships and how she realizes she's no different from her dad in some regards also plays really well into the little arc she has in the episode. One of my notes just says, like the CIA but for Godzilla. I'm sorry, but that line is just funny. Another thing I'll say is that they were smart for not putting Godzilla's name in the title of the show. It would have created unreasonable expectations for how present he'd be in it, and it allows the creators to explore aspects of the universe that don't relate to him. He's an enigmatic shadow that looms in the background, and when he does something, it's really fucking cool. That's how you're supposed to use Godzilla in this particular setting. And it makes the world feel more alive when it's apparent that not every single granular detail revolves around a giant lizard or ape with a keyblade. Not that it hasn't stopped people from complaining about Godzilla's lack of screen time here, but hey, he wouldn't be as cool if they showed every waking moment of his day-to-day. We don't fetishize screen time on this channel. Godzilla is in the show when it matters. At the end of the day, the trajectory of this cinematic universe is a scene where they download a rock. But I'm glad that the showrunners made sure to make a decent standalone piece, not wholly disconnected from that, but distant enough to make me accept it as its own thing. Monarch Legacy of Monsters doesn't just exist to fill in the gaps of the universe. It remembers to have people to care about in it too. Absolutely not perfect, but it's such a breath of fresh air. I hope it lands on both feet in the end. Again, I'm writing this before it's over, so I really don't want to eat my words here. Monarch is okay. For Godzilla's birthday, Toho not only put out a whole-ass movie, thoughts on that in a moment, but also 2 brand new short films, celebrating the 50th anniversary of Godzilla vs. Megalon. And they're both awesome. First there was the Gemstones CGI short. This one was a little more ambitious than last year's by introducing even more story setup. Megalon got an insane glow up too. Like, wow, I love dumbass Showa era Megalon. He's so silly, but this is such a badass new look for the guy. The fight in the second half was pretty fun. Godzilla starts using more controlled bursts of atomic energy and he's flying all over the place. It's a way of emulating the drop kick without it actually being that, you know? But yeah, I love the short. If Jet Jaguar has 1 million fans, I'm one of them. If Jet Jaguar only has 1 fan, then that one is me. If Jet Jaguar has no fans, then I am no longer of this earth. This sentiment was reinforced by the next short, a highly anticipated live-action match between Godzilla and Jet Jaguar. Him and his big dumb smile kicked a lot of ass. Like, audio issues with the original livestream upload aside, I had a blast. Godzilla fighting against a more humanoid opponent allowed for more dynamic, Ultraman-like fight scenes that complemented the performances of the suit actors. My favorite moment was when Jet did this crazy jump kick. The little nods to Godzilla film history and the shot composition and suit acting is great. The production values in these Godzilla Fest shorts just keep getting better and better. If Godzilla's movies are going to be portraying him with computer-generated effects from now on, it's a reasonable consolation that we still get these celebratory short films that prove that the art of suitmation is still relevant to the big bastard. Just, maybe give him a new suit. Final Goji has seen better days. Rest in peace, Zone Fighter. It was your 50th anniversary too, and you got nary a whisper. Here we go. The big one. This is the one I was looking forward to the most this year. At the tail end, Godzilla -1 came out. Good for them.
Godzilla -1.
It was released on November 3rd in Japan and November 29th for early screenings in America. I'm sure a lot of you have seen it by now, but I'm also aware it's not available everywhere at the time of this recording. I already did a whole spoiler-heavy podcast talking about the film, so if you want a more in-depth review with spoilers, then that's where you would go. We recorded it in VR chat on a Kmart world. I thought it was pretty entertaining. Who the hell are you?
Oh, I'm
It's
Simmons.
me, Dicker T. Shut up! It's me, Dicker T.
If you want the spoiler-free blurb, here's what I have to say. -1 has an emotional core that I think is somewhat rare in a Godzilla film. It manages to strike a balance where the monster scenes are not only terrifying, but the drama is equally as compelling. The main character's arc is satisfying. The music is eerie and powerful. The action scenes are thrilling, and several sequences actually had me gripping my seat. The message of the film is also easily digestible, if not lacking in complexity. Godzilla is the scariest he's ever been, and there are so many rousing moments, like, this movie is goddamn good. Even if it stumbles in some regards, I think one character could have had more moments, but these complaints are paltry in the face of the rest of the film. This is easily one of the most solid, conventionally structured Godzilla films, and a serious contender for being the best in the franchise. This and Shin Godzilla are in heavy competition to take a spot as my all-time favorite. They're both great for different reasons, and I think that's what's so important. That we don't have Godzilla films that feel very similar. For a movie that's edging the dude's 70th anniversary, they're too cowardly to admit it's currently his 69th, it's nice to see them go back to the roots of the character in a bombastic fashion. While it is a shame we can't get more suitmation, at least Ultraman is still here for us, and also those Godzilla shorts, if future computer-generated efforts display the same level of scope and visible artistry and cinematography and blocking, then Godzilla couldn't be better off. I can live with waiting 4 to 5 years for a new Japanese Godzilla movie if it can guarantee this level of quality. -1 is great. See it whenever possible. So, yeah, all things considered, 2023 was the most densely packed year for kaiju media in a very long time. Godzilla, Ultraman, Gamera, they all got new entries, and, in my opinion, they were all hits. If there was something that came out this year that I missed or didn't see, yell at me in the comments to boost the video and the create a diverse pool of opinions. No, but seriously, next year there's going to be a new Ultraman and Kamen Rider series. That's what I've come to expect anyways. And we're also getting a new a new Kong and Godzilla movie. Also, Ultraman Rising. Forgot about that in the original script. If there's anything that hasn't been announced, then it remains to be seen how eventful next year will be. It's hard to really top this year, but I'm hoping to at least enjoy everything I see. So yeah, looking forward to 2024. Aside from all the new monster stuff, 2023 was also my biggest yet as a video creator, and I'm hoping 2024 can be just as good. Whether you're a longtime viewer of the channel, someone who joined just this year, or if this is your first video of mine, I can't say it enough, but thank you so much. Happy holidays and a happy new year. Here is a shout out to the top patrons who helped make videos like this one possible. Pack Jeff, Johnny Hedgewolf, Eric Guzda, Jumplity Tinglefoogle, Jonos Firewalker, Easterman, Macho Mantis, Jackson Flint, Manila Fan, Sampai, Golden Made Me an Ultraman Fan, Navik15, Jacob Hinch, Dude Bro, Alistair Gilmore, Seamus Kelly, Anonymous Euronymous 1349, Fujoshi Urinal, Grazio, Driller, Mulan Nguyen, Irrelevant 402, Hey I'm Mooney, Krazak 53, Komen, Queer Kaiju, Chronicler Waba, Alcoholic Alligators, Ryan Santa Cruz, Avok Robot, The Antagonist, Godzilla Rich, It's God Z, Big Odilo, An Actual Dimetrodon, CMG, Red Cometary, and Marpzilla. Thank you all very much.